Noob D&D Dad here, and we are going to talk about session 39 of my son's campaign that I am DMing for. So you wouldn't think that the follow-up session to the double dragon killing session of last time would be very exciting, but I actually had tons of fun as a DM in this aftermath type session. So in Dragon of Icespire Peak, they were in Icespire Hold last time, and they ended up here in H19. And it's actually quite the group of people there. It's my son, my friend, the cousin, and 3 NPCs from Axholm that they're friends with, so that's 6. And then the leader of the Red Leather gang and a buddy. So that's 8 people are starting out this session. Well, 3 humans and 5 NPCs. And one of the NPCs from the Red Leather gang had run off previously. So he is a total wild card in this session, and he actually ended up being used a lot differently than I thought. I had a whole nefarious plan for him, but some of the choices they made, you'll see when he comes back. So right off the bat, the players wanted to keep exploring because they didn't actually explore the entire place before meeting up with the dragons. And at this point, I decided to let a die roll make a decision for the NPCs. So the Red Leather Gang guys, they're typically bad guys, but in this case, they had been persuaded to help fight the dragon for treasure. And one of them had died, one ran away, and the other 2 were injured really bad. And so I decided to have a die roll for their decision on if they're going to stay with the group and keep exploring the rest of Icespire Hold and looking for additional treasure or not. So I decided that a 1 through 9 would mean that they are going to be like, thank you, that was fun, thank you for the couple items we got, we're done, bye. And then 10 through 20 would be that they're going to stay with the group as they explore the location. And I rolled a 3. And my son was really happy because it meant they go away, they quit sucking up XP, which we're not really counting, but we have started counting, and that they're sucking up treasure. So he's like, yeah, get them out of here. We don't need them here. So in typical burglar, robber type fashion, they say, okay, cool, thanks for the battle, thanks for the couple items, and we're going to go, and we will give you 3 days in which we will not rob you because they are just robbers to the core. And so that's their way of leaving on a good note, is being we give you 3 days until we're free to rob you again. Remember that, because that's going to come up again. Okay. And I did something that maybe you should not do because it breaks the game, but our fighter character, who is going to retire to be the town guard in Phandalin, he has the dragon slaying sword that he got from the Essentials kit, right? It's one of the cards in there. But I decided that since he had just decapitated 2 dragons, that sword was going to magically evolve. So I'm going to mix it with something from the 2024 DMG. But little side note here, look at this. I dropped it. Oh, look at that. I was just handling all my books and it just slipped out of my hand and slammed into the hard floor. So it's makes this squeaky noise when I push it. So the players have a long rest, right? Because they're all recovering because they've just been totally wrecked. And when they awake, I say that the dragon slaying sword has a red blade now. And it turns out that it has turned into a Vorpal sword of dragon slaying. So basically, because this character has been the decapitator character the entire time, his dragon slaying sword, after slaying 2 dragons, and again, it had slain dragons prior because they found it in a tomb. So I mean, this dragon sword is now have a lot of history to it. So I decided that each owner, their name will be carved into the handle. And so as this player character their character's retiring, and then he wants to play a warlock instead of a fighter. So the fighter's retiring in Phandalin, but his sword evolves into a Vorpal sword of dragon slaying. So it's a magic evolved. I didn't think of any downsides to it, so it is just freaking OP sword. But the idea is that it's going to stay with him and just be this legendary sword in this town. So let me know if you've ever evolved a magic item. But everybody thought that was super cool. I thought it was super cool. It's probably way overpowered, but I just couldn't resist. I thought it was so awesome. Plus, since he was retiring, I was like, okay, we can throw this out there. I don't know if I would have done it if he was going to stay with the party, because it might have just overshadowed everything. But I love the idea that if you roll a 20, it just decapitates whatever you're fighting. So meanwhile, the players are just exploring all these different rooms, and they've actually been through some of them. And I'm having to remember, because this was weeks ago before I went out of town when we did our last session, and I'm like, what rooms of these have they been in? So I'm just trying to paint a picture of what's in the room. But I actually had an interesting discussion with my friend about investigating rooms, right? Because I have witnessed a school of thought where they basically walk into a room and like stand in the middle of it and be like, okay, roll investigation. Like, and if I roll high enough, you have to tell me everything in this room. And I really don't like that way of playing. I think it negates my job as the DM, and it also makes the players lazy, like they're just playing a video game and walking into a room pushing like an investigate button. I don't like that. And I was talking to my friend about that, and he's the same kind of way where it's like, so the DM describes the room. So it's like, okay, there's a piano over here, there's some bookshelves over here, and there's like a tapestry. And then there's like, it's really well worn, right? And then the player should be like, I want to look on the bookshelves, I want to investigate here. Like they should tell me what they're investigating, and then depending on what they roll can depend on what they can find. And so I just have had some players do that where they just want to roll when they're in the room and be like, hey, tell me everything, what's in here? And it's like, well, what are you looking at? Like based on the triggers I gave you. So you, dear viewer, what is your opinion on investigating rooms? Should someone be able to just walk into a room and get a natural 20, and then I just have to spill all the secrets of that room to them? Or should it be like a back and forth where they have to be acting on some kind of description that I've given them? What do you think? Now, speaking of a secret room, this area, H9, I think has been unspoiled. Let's see. The orcs never entered or inhabited these areas. And then if you look at the location overview, it talks about this warlord fighting off orcs, etc. So one thing I like to do is incorporate the history from the beginning of this part of the book, right? The part that you're in, into the different rooms they go in. So when they go into this area that hasn't been spoilt by orcs, everywhere else in the castle, like furniture's broken, everything's broken. And I always like to add that there's like chicken bones because my orcs are always like rotisserie chickening, like eating chickens and stuff. But when they open up the secret door, it's dusty, but there's like tapestries on the wall, there's tables, there's candlesticks. And so I just want to paint a picture that it is actually untouched by orcs, which then of course makes my son's group, they are very much into like turning every stone trying to find stuff. So my bad, but I just love the idea of having this untouched area. So they of course start searching, and as they're searching and they're asking me questions, they're making me answer. They're like, what's on the tapestries? And I'm like, what is on the tapestries? So this is where me as a DM, I feel like I'm playing the game as well, because I'm like, I don't know what is on the tapestries. It's like, who's going to answer this? It's like, oh, that's me. I have to answer this. And so what I decided was going to be on the tapestries. They're 3 feet by 5 feet, and it's going to be a humanoid in armor fighting off a horde of orcs in one of them. And they're like, whoa, that's so cool, because I'm thinking of the warlord from the story at the beginning of the module, or the beginning of the chapter or whatever. And so the book doesn't tell me to do this, but I'm like, they say this hallway is unspoilt by orcs. And I'm like, okay, we're going to have this stuff. So they were like, wow. And then they're like, well, what is the other tapestry? And I'm like, I don't know. What is the other tapestry? So I had the other tapestry be like a farm with like big fields with like the sun rising above it. Just to show like there's like a war fighting and like prosperity of this castle team people. And then, of course, they roll up the tapestry and stick it into their portable hole. And then my son also grabs the other tapestry because they're just like, we have a portable hole, so we're just going to like loot stuff. So it's cool that I can create like items that they're like, I'm taking this home and I'm going to put this on the wall at my house. All right. Now, the part they've been the most excited to go is to the Undercroft, to the crypts. And this place is actually extremely anticlimactic. The Undercrofts, like there's like nothing in these tombs. And so I'm like, okay, so each time they open one, it's like a warrior, rusted armor, rusted weapons, but I always have a part of their skeleton just be like wrecked. So one has like a crushed in skull, one's missing arms, one's missing legs, because these are warriors that died in battle and were buried, and so maybe they don't have all of their body parts. So that's just like a little flavor that I add in the tomb. But also they're down there like opening every single one, and they've already killed the dragon and they've already got like 5 magic items out of him. And they're like, where's the treasure? And it's like, they're like going around looking for this treasure, right? Because they're thinking there's going to be this dragon horde which there should be, and spoiler alert, there is, and I know where it is. Maybe I didn't know exactly where it was at the time that this session started, but I definitely know where it is as we get going. So stay tuned for the Dragon Horde, because we'll talk about it. But because they were opening up every one of these caskets, I'm like, okay, we got to have something. So I decided if they rolled like a 20 on investigation, that would then unlock them to roll a D100. And then I kind of changed my mind a few times during this because I'm honestly, because I was unsure what to do. So I was like, okay, if you roll high enough, I'm going to give you an item. And then I'm like, okay, if you roll high enough, it's going to, or if you roll low, it's going to be like a common magic item. So I was kind of waffling back and forth, but the point is each casket they rolled a natural 20 on investigating, they were going to find like some kind of a cool item if they rolled high enough on the next roll. And so that's kind of a theme I've been doing in both my groups that I'm DMing for, is that there could be a situation where there's no reason you should get a cool item, but I let a roll happen. And sometimes I have it be like 100. If you hit a 100 on a D100, then you're going to get a magic item, or like a 90 to 100. So that's in cases when there's no business for a magic item to be there. I'm like, if you roll really well, like, sure, let's throw in some variables. And that's one thing I actually want to get better at with this new Dungeon Master guide, is giving out magic items, because I feel like I kind of had it down with the other one, even though it was kind of chaotic, right? The different tables they had. These tables are so well organized that I'm like, oh, now you're making me decide if it's like an arcana item, an implement, a weapon, or whatever, right? So I do love these tables, how they're divided into the different kind of items and in the different kind of rarities. So I can really just be like, are you going to get a rare, very rare? Like, what are you going to get? But I just really need to decide, because what I've been doing is I'm like, oh, you're magic people, let's pull it off the arcana table, right? Because I want to find stuff that is going to be useful to them. So I try to fit, or like if the fighter's there, I have it be like a weapon or something. So really, maybe I should just use this guy. This is on page 218. So like right now they're in here. So I really shouldn't be giving out legendary items. Oops. But I guess I should just roll a D100. But it's interesting. Only a 99 to 100 gets them a very rare. So yeah, the other book was just like told you what table to go on and you just rolled the item, right? This one is like you really need to pick what type of magic item it is. So that's been my way, is just if they can use it, I'll try and give them that. And also I kind of want to start re-rolling stuff that they've already got. How do you do magic items? Like, how do you decide what kind of thing they are, especially in this new system where they're all divided up? Okay, and now we go into H23, and the casket that's right in the middle of the floor, I decide to have carved into it somebody sliding down the mountain on something, right? So once you know what's in this casket, it's clearly a sled that people are sliding down the mountain. And then the book describes that there is a toboggan in this casket that they can assemble in 10 minutes and slide down the mountain. So I think that's kind of ridiculous, and I don't think the players would use it. I also think it's ridiculous that if you are in a hurry to get out of here, that you have to take 10 minutes to assemble this thing. That's going to be an eternity if you're getting chased by something. So anyway, yeah, I had there be this sled in there that if they wanted to build it and slide down the mountain, they absolutely could. So again, this part of the map is actually pretty anticlimactic, so I decided to add this monster, this naughty boy, Shadow. One thing I think it's cool is that the Shadow, it could be from somebody that was good in their life, and now this shadow was released when they died because it was all the things that they were suppressing in themselves over their lifetime, and so now there's like a shadow lingering around their grave. So I decided to have a shadow attack them, and I pretty much decided that it would be invisible, and so I just talked about how they could just feel the air moving, or they could sense something in the room with them. But honestly, like, I think I was thinking more of the thing in Strahd, like another big scary, like invisible angry thing. Or maybe that they fight in the Dragon Burrow. Anyway, I pulled up Shadow, and it was actually, again, a little anticlimactic because it only has like 16 hit points. But the point is that I had it be invisible. So it was like a little bit of a challenge where they're trying to figure out how they can kind of lock onto where it's at to shoot something at it. So that was kind of a fun little fight. It only gives 100 XP.
for all of the people that are there. So not like a huge boon. But I did have somebody find a bunch of platinum coins in one of the caskets based on the individual treasure from the DMG.
Okay, so I decide to have the players go back up to the rooftop. Well, that sounds kind of railroady, but it is a little bit railroady. But they're just like wandering around this building that they've been in. You know, they go into some rooms and they take some more time to learn about them, right? So I share a little bit more of the lore from those rooms. But I'm just like, there's not a lot down here. So what are we going to do? So I'm like, okay, let's have those red leather guys have found some treasure back up on the roof where they were. So the players were in like that little guardhouse thing that had got destroyed on the roof. And the dragons were really out on the flat open part of the roof. So I decided that they had iced in their treasure hoard, like as far as like coinage went, right? Like, so the players already found the magic items, but I decided that they had iced in the hoard. And so they hear this like picking noise, right? So they get up there and they see the three... So they see the three red leather guys, the leader, the buddy, and the dude who ran away. So they had reunited. Okay, and I decided that this treasure is a CR13 treasure hoard and a CR6 treasure hoard because it was the adult dragon and the young dragon, right? So the players get there and the red leather guys are like, oh, never mind what we're doing here. And they like kind of stand in front of it. But my friend who found spyglass and then had the other guy mend it, like kind of zooms in and is like, sees some treasure behind them, right? In the ice that they're breaking out on the roof. And I'm like, what are they going to do, right? Because my players are like good people. They're not like, they don't kill for treasure, really, right? Like they're usually like on some kind of a noble quest. So I'm presenting them this moral quandary being like, are you going to fight these dudes for this treasure? Especially when you just kind of invented a truce. And both of them, my son and my friend, are both like, let them have it. And I'm like, do you have any idea what's down there? And I guess it's like, they don't care. They don't care because they're breaking up with this gang. The gang left. They've already separated ways. And they're like, sure, you found it. You can have it. And I'm like, you guys have been searching this castle and you keep being like, where's the dragon treasure? And it's like, guys, it's right here. So not that I really wanted them to like fight these guys, but they were pretty passive about it. They were just like, yeah, you guys can have that. That's fine. I was very surprised to hear that. But one thing I thought was cool. So my friend was honoring their 3-day truce, basically. And he was like, okay, we won't mess with you guys for 3 days. Like kind of throwing it back in their face. Not that they would like attack them and go after them for the treasure. But I guess they were honoring their end of the deal, being like, we won't touch you for 3 days. Which is interesting because the robbers wouldn't do that. But I thought it was kind of a cool choice. So it was fun that I presented this choice and they're like, you can have it. And I'm like, there's so much treasure in the ice. Okay, before I talk about the rest of what they did at this location, I want to talk about how much treasure is there. Truth be told, I don't have it quantified yet, and I think we should roll for it right now. Can we use your new dice to roll for treasure? Yeah. Okay, we are going to keep it simple. So CR13 is the one dragon. So we're going to do that first. So that's 8d8. So here we go. 6 plus 2. Write all this down. Plus, oh gosh. Plus 3. Plus 4. Plus 3. Okay, here we go. 3 more. 5. 6 and 7. Okay, I actually had to step away from filming between those last two, so I forgot what the last two were, so I'm going to do 2 other ones. Okay, a 4 and an 8. Okay, I think that probably about averages. Okay, so 37 is the D8 rolls times 10,000. So, all right, well, holy crap, that is 370,000 gold for the adult dragon. And let's see how much for the CR6 dragon. Okay, it's going to be 8 D10s. So here's the D10. Here we go. 6. I'm going to write these down. 3, 4. How many times do I need to do this for? 8. All right. 10. Right? So there's no 0. 8. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 2 more. 7. And 7. Okay, so that is 49. We're going to times it by 100. So an additional 4,900 gold. Okay, so my players basically dismissed 374,900 gold pieces. Tell me if I'm reading that wrong. I'm running on like 3 hours of sleep. It is Christmas Day right now, and I'm running on not very much sleep. So did I do that wrong? But that's how much gold is there, basically frozen, that these dudes are going to get. So now the question I have to ask, because my players just let that money go, they didn't know how much it was. What is that going to result to these red leather gang guys getting that much cash? Like, those guys are going to become major players. That's a huge amount of cash. They could hire an army. They could build airships. They could build castles, I think. So, I mean, there's going to be some consequences for just walking away from this treasure, and I'm actually kind of excited for it. Okay, so back to the rest of what they do on this map. So they go to the guardhouse, this little guy right there. Where is it? Right there? There to the gatehouse. And inside of that, there are stables, and they had tied up their horses. So they arrive to find all of their horses untied and milling about. And then, of course, all the bandit horses still tied up. So my players, again, decided to not retaliate. They're just like, 3 days. So fortunately, the horses were kind of just milling about, so they had to gather them up, but they hadn't like run off. So they make it back to the bottom of the mountain, to the wagon, where I decide to have their 3 NPC friends that they met all the way back in Axholm, Yance, Errol, and Leaf, depart ways. So they shake hands and say, once again, it's great working with you guys. And then they ride off with epic music playing. And at this point, I'm like, if we see these guys again, they've got to be leveled up because they're just the veteran stat block. So quick note on XP. As of like the completion of this Icespire Peak campaign, and transitioning over to the 2024 rules, I am kind of tracking XP because the plan is to finish the Dragon of Icespire Peak, get up to level 10, then start the Vecna Eve of Ruin. But Dragon of Icespire Peak does not get them up very high. So I'm like, okay, is the Icespire Hold and the Tower of Storms level going to get them to their next level? Thinking about it, but I'm still tracking XP to see if it works well. Speaking of XP, here's how we're doing after 2 dragons. So just your normal level at 7 is, or once you're at level 7, you are at about 23,000, and then it takes 34,000, well, up to 34 to beat a level 8. So killing a adult dragon and a young dragon got 12,300 XP, but there were 10 people that they had to divide it up between, so they only got this much XP each. Because my understanding is that when you have NPCs help you, is that they basically eat up some of the XP. Let me know if you do that differently. Now, I actually really liked this. So the players went back to Phandalin. I was thinking they were just going to go to the Tower of Storms, which is the only place in this entire book that they have not been yet. But they wanted to go back to Phandalin first. And so I decided that when they arrive back in Phandalin, that Harbin Wester, who has always been in like a moo and hiding behind the door and just giving them quests through the door and giving them treasures through the door, and so cowardly, he is out in the town in a very, very nice robe, and he's like shaking hands with people. So clearly these dragon slayings have boosted his confidence. And so they show up with 2 more dragon heads that they've stuffed into their portable hole. So they now have 3 dragon heads from Cryovain, Cryovain's mom, and Cryovain's dad. And my friend, I thought this was so cool. I love how he tries to put his stamp on the map. He decides that he proposes to Harbin Wester that they should rename Phandalin to Dragon's Bane. And I'm just like, freak yeah. And they're going to leave one of the heads there. And then they're going to take one of the heads to Axholm, and they want to rename that to Dragon Doom Hold and take one of the heads there. And then they actually want to go to Coneyberry, which is destroyed at this point in time, and they want to rebuild it, and they want to name it Dragon's Folly.
and take one of the heads there. So there'll be these 3 towns that all have dragon names and dragon heads, and Harbin Wester's kind of owning them all. But my friend is also positioning him and his people as like big players in this up and coming Harbin Wester's like land grab, basically. So I thought that was a kind of a cool twist, and I did not see that coming. So I was like, yeah, Harbin Wester will definitely consider that. Now they want to buy more potions from Adabra Gwyn, right? From all the way back at that tower, which she now lives in town. And if you remember the town, every time they come back to town, I describe how it's changed. So in my campaign, I have Mount Hot now have gone off as a volcano, and there's like refugees and people flowing down into Phandalin. So every time they come back to Phandalin, it's grown. So the temporary buildings have become more permanent, and then there's more tents on the outside. So Phandalin is actually really growing in my version of this world. And last time they bought a bunch of potions from Adabra to go on their dragon thing. And I'm like, she hasn't brewed that many. So I'm like, she has 2. You guys can buy 2 more. So they buy 2 more, and they head off to Tower of Storms, which I'm super excited for. Now, here's a few questions I have going into Tower of Storms. So these guys are like very powerful, and it's only 2 of them now because they left the guy who's retiring at the town, right? The fighter is going to become the town guard, right? So these players are going to Tower of Storms, and I have to make Tower of Storms like worth their time. So I'm going to have to bump it up to make it a little bit harder. And then also, should I level them after Tower of Storms or not? Or should I just keep tracking XP? I'm leaning towards leveling them because it's the 2 mission leveling pattern that the campaign has been doing so far. But after after Tower of Storms, they will have completed the entire book. And then I'm thinking we go to Candlekeep, and we do one of the standalone Candlekeep mysteries to get them from like level 8 to 9, and then maybe another one to get 9 to 10, I don't know. But the point is, at level 10, they're going to start the Vecna campaign. So let me know if you have any opinions on how to get from level 7 up to 10 in kind of an open world at this point. I'm thinking Candlekeep, maybe something else. Okay, well, that has been session 39 of my son's campaign, and the veterans group actually did 39 in this book as well. And then their 40th was kind of a treasure dealing out episode. And so these guys, they're going to have their 40th episode, finish this book as well, most likely. So it's kind of interesting that both my groups had 40 sessions in this book. And then obviously one thing I really need to work on is just treasure and magic items, and how really get a system down that how I want to give them out. So that's kind of like my homework. But this has been so fun, and I appreciate you guys coming on this noob DM journey with me and kind of learning how I'm doing stuff and also helping me do stuff, because I definitely implement your suggestions. Okay, well, stay tuned for session 40 of my son's campaign. At the Tower of Storms, we'll see if they also kill and eat the friendly crab like the Army veteran group did. So anyway, stay tuned for more videos on those guys as well, and let me know what you want to see more of. Anyway, thanks for watching.